Welcome to the Think Yourself Healthy podcast, where you meet the intersection of mind, body, and soul. I'm your host, Heather Duranja, founder of Nutrition Vixen, registered dietitian, nutritionist, personal trainer, and cognitive behavioral specialist. I'm a mother, author, self-improvement junkie, and recovering perfectionist turned professional half-asser. Each week, I'll be bringing on a guest or a topic that will help you go from surviving to thriving. Are you with me? All right, here we go with today's episode. Hello, everybody. On today's show, I have a very, very special guest, and she at one point was a coach for me. So this woman is near and dear to my heart. She is also somebody that I admire and respect immensely. I have been following her career since deciding that I wanted to become a dietitian. She's kind of a founder in her space. And she's also a dietitian who has been podcasting for a very long time. So I am not intimidated at all. I am super excited to have the opportunity to have you on as a guest. And so on today's show, I have Melissa Joy Dobbins. She is an award-winning, nationally recognized registered dietitian nutritionist and certified diabetes educator. She is known as the guilt-free RD because food shouldn't make you feel bad. With more than 25 years experience, Melissa has helped digest food and nutrition information so they can make their own well-informed food decision based on facts, not fear. As the CEO of Sound Bites, she promotes sound science, smart nutrition, and good food, empowering people to enjoy their food with health in mind. Melissa hosts the popular Sound Bites podcast, where she interviews experts on a variety of topics ranging from fad diets to farming, and delves into the science, the psychology, and the strategies behind good food and nutrition. Wow. So you guys can see why she has been such an inspiration to me. You really are. I just love what you do. I love all of the what's the word I'm looking for? You've been like one of the first doing the things, right? Like doing the podcast, doing the media stuff. I love the guilt-free eating, and I can't wait to talk to you about that and how that began for you. And so thank you, Melissa, for being here.
Oh, Heather, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I always enjoy talking with you so much and watching your career, which is very inspirational to me as well.
Well, you have definitely played a pivotal role in my success. I hired you a while back. I don't even remember what, 2018 maybe. I think it was 2018. So. And I had been following you for years and loved what you do. And I was like, I want to do what she does. So I'm going to hire her so she can teach me how to do those things. And you gave me great advice. You really helped me get in the mindset of being able to pursue the big dreams, the things that I wanted to do that I just didn't have the confidence within myself to believe that I could actually do them. So thank you for all of your guidance.
Oh, my pleasure. You really were way ahead of yourself in the sense that you really knew yourself well. You knew what you wanted to do. You were already crushing it, and I just maybe helped, shine the mirror back on you and say, "You have this. You got this, girl. Just go do it."
Well, sometimes it does take that validation, from someone that we admire and we respect, and we see them doing all of the things that we want to do. And we're like, I want to do that. I want to be that. And sometimes it does take that person to just say, hey, you're already doing it. Keep doing it. Do it with a smile, Yeah. And yeah, there's going to be ups. There's ups, there's downs. It's never an easy road, It's never an easy road. I mean,
true.
That white picket fence and all that bullshit is just setting us up for failure let's be real. There are going to be failures. There are going to be step backwards. But the beautiful thing in those failures and step backwards is that we identify where there's room for growth, and there's lessons that can be learned so that we can apply new knowledge and new solutions, new strategies that are going to empower us. So yeah, it's exciting stuff. So thank you again for being here. And I would love to know how you came up with this whole guilt-free eating. Talk to me about that.
Sure. So I think I remember distinctly driving in my car, and just all of a sudden the term guilt-free RD came into my mind. And so I wrote it, I wrote it down, and I thought, well, I'm gonna have to Google this later and make sure like it's not taken already. But the whole idea came from the core value that I have as a dietitian. And I think, all dietitians are in the business to help people. But then if you dig a little bit deeper, how we want to help people in the different ways and what that looks like for us is, a little different. And that's where we get into our niches and our areas of expertise and really dive into our passions. And so for me, it had a lot of different faces throughout my career as far as this guilt-free eating. But that thread was there from day, even looking back to one end. So, in the beginning, it had more of an eating disorder, weight management look to it. Like, there's this fear of, like having an eating disorder, or if you have an eating disorder, there's a fear of eating food. If you're trying to lose weight, there's a fear of eating food. And then my career evolved into diabetes education, and that brought the fear factor to a whole new level.
Yeah.
And now I feel like the space I'm in now is more agriculture and sustainability and the free from labels, and all of the conversation going on in that arena is also a fear factor.
Yes.
So, that feeling was there the whole time. I just didn't have the guilt-free RD name for it. So when that name popped in my head and I Googled it and nobody was using it, I got that baby trademarked. And like I said, I feel like it can speak to a lot of different people in a lot of different ways.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely one of those terms that can be applied in many, many different concepts. It's funny because I also got my name while driving in my car. I was driving when I was in undergrad. I remember driving to campus and I was like, who am I going to be? Who am I going to be? And Nutrition Vixen popped in my head. And then I did the same thing, Googled, wanted to see if anyone was already using it. There was a kitchen vixen, but not a nutrition vixen. And so I also secured everything around it that I could, got my web domain, secured that night. And then I didn't do anything with it for like 4 or 5 years. So, but I knew in the car, it was going to be Nutrition Vixen. So that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
So, your career being that you have 25 years worth of experience in the industry, you've really seen a lot.
Yeah, it has changed a lot since I started. I got out of grad school and started my first job in clinical in 1993. So it's changed a lot.
Yeah. So do you feel that, being a registered dietitian and being in this industry, that this industry specifically, you have to be okay with constantly changing?
Yeah, I mean, I think unfortunately that's life. And I'll be the first to say I'm not a fan of change. It's hard. It's really hard. But when and I'm not an early adopter by any means, but when you finally get ready and able to embrace the change, it's usually not as bad as what we had envisioned. And I think, especially in the field of nutrition, the research evolves, our roles as dietitians have evolved. And one of the exciting things about our field is that there's so many different things we can do. And I have worn a lot of different hats throughout my career, and I've enjoyed being able to do that. So I think we're really lucky. And, there's a lot that we have to embrace that maybe we don't just love, like, I'll be honest, not a huge Instagram fan. It gives me indigestion. But likewise, live television interviews. That was the bulk of my media experience. And I did a lot of it. It was not my favorite thing to do, but I felt I know. Everybody's like, wait, what? You didn't like? Because some people love it.
And you just look, and you're such a natural.
Thank you. Well, I felt a responsibility to do it. I felt that it was important. And so that's why when the opportunities came my way, I embraced that. So I think that there's a little bit of both in our career, in our field, where, it's not all, cupcakes and roses.
Right. Well, like you, I also am not a big fan of change. However, I have learned how to embrace change and get excited about change because change creates new opportunities. And with new opportunities, we have, a chance to really fulfill ourselves in a way that we haven't been fulfilled before. And so for me, going into the field of dietetics, and I learned like, oh my gosh, I can literally be anything I want to be as a dietitian. There are so many different facets that I can use my knowledge and skills and create a career path out of. And so for me, that was really exciting because I get bored easily,
Yeah.
I'm one of those people. I'm super creative. I get these ideas in my head and I'm like, oh, I'm going to do that. And then I do the thing for a while and I'm like, I think I need to do something else.
On to the next thing.
Yeah. And I'm on to the next thing. And so unfortunately, one of the bad things with that is that it has caused a lot of inconsistency for me. So for instance, talking about social media, well, the reality is if you want to be a self-employed dietitian who has a voice and, is trying to make an impact, you have to embrace social media. You have to utilize it as one of the platforms to reach your audience. No matter what age, no matter what niche you're in, you have to embrace that. And so for me, I had a real issue with showing up consistently because I'd do it for a few days and I'd be like, oh my God, that was so much work. And, and I wouldn't see the responses that I was hoping for. So then I would get bored and I'd be like, I'm going to go try to do the YouTube thing. Let's go to YouTube. And then I'd do some YouTube videos and then that didn't pan out. And so I was constantly jumping from one space to the other. And ultimately I had to say to myself, Heather, why aren't you making the impact you want? Oh, because you're not showing up consistently.
Yeah. But I think part of that is important for us to try different things out.
Agree.
To be open to try them. And then you find, okay, I love Twitter.
Yeah,
I love that
Twitter.
space. Right.
Do you?
See, I love it.
I don't use it. I'm not even on it.
It's just every social media platform has such a different personality. And so I feel like, okay, I have to have a presence on Instagram, but I don't love it. But Twitter, I don't spend a ton of time on there, but I find the most interesting people. I find out such interesting information. I feel that it enriches my mind. So I think it is important for us to try different things. And I think sometimes we feel like, yeah, we're not sticking with something or we're not following through, but it's okay to cut bait when you're like, you know what, that's not for me. Or, okay, I tried that, but maybe if I was more consistent, I think a lot of things in our career are a good analogy or parallel to healthy eating. Like
I was just gonna
right? Like if we were on the same page, like
yes.
well, you could try something healthy for a while, but if you don't stick with it,
yes,
then it's not going to work for you in the long term. But if you can find, what works and feels right that you can stick with and show up, you got it.
Yeah. I love it that you went there because that's exactly where my brain was going. And that was going to be my next question. So you beat me to it. And I love that. So with, where you're at right now, and with what we see going on in the diet culture, there's so many things out there and there's so much misinformation. I can completely understand why people are so overwhelmed and so confused. So fed up.
Yeah.
So talk to me about intuitive eating and mindfulness. We see a lot of this now. So what are your thoughts? What is your approach around this whole mindfulness and intuitive eating?
Yeah. I think intuitive eating and mindfulness are necessary for us. I think it's so important to have a good relationship with food. And I like to say a good relationship with our bodies too, because we might have a good relationship with food, but then if it doesn't also translate to our bodies, then there's a little bit more work that needs to be done there. And as we said earlier, I've been in the field for a long time, and intuitive eating and mindfulness, although maybe those terms weren't used,
Mm-hmm.
those concepts have been around for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going more mainstream now, which is good because we don't need to be in an echo chamber amongst our colleagues and know the concept. The whole world needs to know these
Right.
concepts and self-care and self-love. However, I get a little concerned when I feel like there's it's black and white, or it's this
Mm-hmm.
or that, where it's either mindfulness and intuitive eating and non-diet
Mm-hmm.
versus maybe I guess for lack of a better way, the more traditional approach. I think it's still okay to want to lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can manage your weight or manage a health condition like diabetes. As a
Yes.
certified diabetes educator, I have a lot of strong feelings about diabetes. I
Mm-hmm.
think you can do those things and still be mindful and intuitive
Mm-hmm.
and take care of yourself. And I wish that those things were more seen to go hand in hand.
Yeah, I agree with you. I also think that when it comes to that intuitive eating, mindfulness, being able to manage weight loss and manage our overall health, that the real reality is that we have to trust. We have to trust ourselves. We have to
Yes.
trust ourselves to listen to the body cues. And with with all of this diet industry and the things that we've seen over decades and decades, it's no wonder we can't trust ourselves, right?
Yeah, there's a
And that
lot of noise out there.
so much noise. And so being that we do lack a lot of consistency because we're grasping at the straws and trying to find the band-aids because we don't really want to have to put forth the effort because things are always changing. And so we're so confused. I think that's where a lot of that distrust comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that being said, how do you get people to start trusting themselves? Like, for instance, let's talk about diabetes. You're educating someone who's recently been diagnosed with diabetes and they truly want to be able to manage their blood sugar so that they can protect their health long term. How do you teach them to start trusting themselves?
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, and that's one of the reasons I really love working with diabetes, because there is really more of an opportunity to see the immediate
Mm-hmm.
effects. Whereas with weight, like you said, like if you try something and that doesn't work and you try something else, but trusting enough to stick with it for a while, you have to wait for those long-term effects, whether it's the scale or the non-scale
Right,
victories.
right.
Sometimes feeling better physically or mentally takes time.
Mm-hmm.
With diabetes, usually people can make one slight, small change,
Mm-hmm.
really, and see a change in that number, see an immediate change in how they feel. So
Yeah.
that's it, it's just a whole different feel. And that's why I'm kind of addicted to working with people with diabetes,
Mm-hmm.
because once they get that, then it's easier to trust.
Mm-hmm.
And my whole approach with diabetes is I'm trying to empower that person. They have a lot of things going on. Diet is only one piece of the
Right.
puzzle, especially if they're newly diagnosed or if they've been struggling with diabetes for a while, but never really had the support
Mm-hmm.
to make some small changes and feel like they have a handle on things. There's just a lot going on there. So if
Mm-hmm.
I can just have them take a step back and realize it's they're in the driver's seat.
Mm-hmm.
And if they have questions, they need to speak up and ask their physician or their healthcare provider and have a conversation. And if that healthcare provider isn't coming to the table to have
Mm-hmm.
that conversation with them, then they need to find somebody else.
Yeah.
And so it's really this empowerment approach, because once they feel empowered, then they're able to make choices, and
Yeah.
knowing that, yeah, you can have a piece of candy, you can have a piece of cake, you can have whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can see, how does it make you feel? How does it affect your blood sugars? Maybe it doesn't affect them as much as you thought. Maybe it
Right.
affects them more than you thought. And then take that data and make choices, not
Mm-hmm.
use it as a judgment.
Right. Yeah. So with you having as much experience as you do in the diabetes world, what are your thoughts? Where are we moving as a society with getting a grasp around controlling diabetes? Do you see things improving, or are we still headed in a bad way?
Well, certainly it's an epidemic. There's
Mhm.
the obesity and the diabetes epidemic. The light that I see at the end of the tunnel is how technology is really making it easier for people to manage their lives with
Mhm.
diabetes. And of course, this can be extrapolated to people without diabetes, but there's some specific examples. The American Association of Diabetes Educators just updated their AADE7 self-care
Mm.
behaviors. And they also went through a name change and a credential change, but I'm still working on that, the terminology and all of that. But in April of 2020, they will publish this updated 7 self-care behaviors. So it's diet, monitoring blood sugars, medications, exercise, lifestyle, stress management, coping, things like that.
Mhm.
And what you see, because the last time they were updated was 2011, and what you
Wow.
see, yeah, is
Wow.
and you think, well, these are pretty basic lifestyle things. How much could they change? But the technology
Mhm.
advancements have
Mhm.
made it so much easier. Just a clear example, back in the day, somebody would take their blood sugar and write it down in a little booklet
Mhm.
and bring that booklet in, and we'd go through those numbers together. Now, healthcare providers can get that information in real time, just digitally.
Mm.
So it's just less onus on the patient, the
Yeah.
person with diabetes, to do that extra step.
Yeah.
And that you can see, with continuous blood glucose monitoring, you can see, are you trending up or trending down
Mhm.
versus where are you at right now?
Right.
Because if you have type who was like working at a store in high school and she was trending down, she knew that she needed to stop and go treat, or keep the blood sugar from trending down, versus finding out too late that she was at a
Mhm.
45. So
Right.
I think the technology is making it easier
Mhm.
for people to juggle all those balls.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I do think that that is definitely playing a role in terms of management. I also think that we are, as research comes out and we start learning new things, like for instance, how sleep has an impact on our blood sugar regulation, how stress has an impact on our blood sugar regulation. It starts to put things into more perspective because people get really, like, I know working clinically, especially in like a skilled facility post-op, right? A person comes in, they have diabetes and their blood sugars are in the 400, and they're like, the doctor's like, comes and yells at the dietitian, what's going on with their food, why is
Yep.
this person in the 400s? And it's like, well, it's not the food, we've got them on the appropriate diet. In terms of that, it's because they're not sleeping and their body is in a highly stressed state trying to recover, and that's having an impact on the blood sugars. And I think there needs to be more education and more conversations around that, so that the patient isn't so confused when they are in that situation and you've got the family members like freaking out. I mean, it,
It's hard.
you've been there, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
You know exactly what conversation I'm talking about,
Yes, yes,
right?
yes.
And then
Yeah,
they
I
look
think,
at you and they're like, sleep, stress? What are you you're crazy. Who
right. Let's
Somebody
just
find me
blame
a
the
real
food.
dietitian.
Yeah, let's just blame the food. Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
an easy scapegoat.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that in this day and age, self-care is being talked about so much more.
Mhm.
Because yeah, I think when people learn, and of course, stress management. We've been talking to people with diabetes about that.
Mhm.
Like, look, your blood pressure goes up when you're stressed. Your blood sugar goes up when you're
Yeah.
stressed, and it just takes the blame off of
Mhm.
them a little bit, and
Mhm.
it allows them to take care of themselves a little bit better, because there's no room for shame and blame
Right.
in diabetes management or self-care.
Yeah.
Really
Well,
important.
it's interesting that you use that word shame, because I was recently at a educational conference and it was talking about our thoughts and how our thoughts have an impact on our parasympathetic and our sympathetic nervous system. And the number one thought that elicits the stress response in the body is shame.
Mm,
Okay.
yeah.
Pretty frightening, right? If we think about, especially if we think about diet culture
Oh yeah.
and our connection with our body image, not just our body image, but we're not a good enough mother. We're not a good enough father. We're not a good enough employee or employer. We're not a good enough spouse or
Yes.
partner. We're not a good enough daughter. The list goes on and
Goes
on, and we're
on and
not
on.
doing it in a good enough body. And it's like, oh my gosh, when we step back and look at the reality, we are literally walking around in shame all the time, and we need to cut ourselves some slack. We need to reevaluate expectations so that we can start treating ourselves with some compassion and grace to get this thought process under control, so our physiological response can get under control, so we can set ourselves up for success with longevity and vitality. Because
Yeah.
ultimately, that's what we all are here for. We want to live our best lives, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it unfortunately it does have to start with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And, in the healthcare community, there's a lot of work that needs to be done as well. I was
Yeah.
recently at a conference and they were talking about how explicit obesity prejudice has gone down, but
Mm-hmm.
implicit has gone up.
Wow.
So, it's no longer PC to, discriminate
Right.
against obese people, but what's going on in the back of other people's minds, they're still, blaming
Mm-hmm.
and shaming. And,
Mm-hmm.
obesity needs to be recognized as a disease, just
Yeah.
like diabetes. And there's a lot of work that needs to be
Mm-hmm.
done in that arena.
Absolutely. So what new things are you diving into? I know that, beyond the diabetes education, you've really gotten involved with agriculture and sustainability. So kind of talk to me, what are you doing in this space?
Yeah, so it's been really exciting. When I started my business, Sound Bites, in 2011, I it wasn't I call myself the accidental entrepreneur because I was not looking to start my own business. I didn't necessarily want to do that, but I had to for some family reasons and personal
Mm-hmm.
reasons, and it's turned out great. But when I first started, I thought, well, what should I do? I didn't want to do private practice because when I work with diabetes, I want to work with a team. So I didn't want to be
Mm-hmm.
by myself. And I had all this media and communications experience. So I started doing media trainings and speaker trainings and social media trainings for other dietitians and extension specialists and diabetes educators. And in the last couple of years, those communications trainings have evolved into sustainable nutrition conversation trainings,
Mm-hmm.
which has just been really exciting. I don't consider myself a sustainability expert,
Mm-hmm.
but I did do my master's research on biotechnology in also, I worked for the Dairy Council for 8 years, and I have been on countless farm tours in the United States and internationally. And I've talked with a lot of agriculture experts, farmers in particular, and economists and researchers, especially on the podcast. And I just find the more I learn, the more I
Mm-hmm.
want to learn. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you look at my media and communications background and then the overlay of the sustainability topic, it just helps me feel so fulfilled that I can go, and whether it's a presentation or a full day training, I
Mm-hmm.
can help people have more productive conversations
Mm-hmm.
about sustainability, because that is often very polarizing and it's
Yeah.
black and white and it's this or that. It's like, no, we need all tools in the tool
Mm-hmm.
shed to be
Yeah.
able to have a more sustainable nutrition landscape, and to, let's talk facts and not
Mm-hmm.
hype up things and grab on one little piece of misinformation, or I like to say disinformation, where it's
Yeah.
actually, the misinformation is when the person has, good intention and they think this is true. Disinformation is when somebody knows it's not and they're trying to skew it or put a spin on it. And there's a lot of
Right.
that out there
Okay.
in ag. And, we need to have productive conversations and we need to work together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like that. So I recently tagged you in something that I saw on Instagram that put me in a fury. It was what I thought was going to be a good post about dietitians, and then it turned out to not be such a good post about dietitians. So I want to have a little conversation with you for potentially the person out there who is very interested in the field of nutrition and health and wellness, but they're confused whether or not they should invest their time, energy, and resources in becoming a dietitian versus just being a nutritionist. What are your thoughts on that? What would your advice be to that person on the fence?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm a little biased because I'm a registered dietitian, but certainly, hey, if you want to get a PhD in nutrition, you could be that kind of nutritionist.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with that. But as you know, with licensure and the legal terminology,
Mm-hmm.
anybody can use that term nutritionist.
Right.
And I do think that there are plenty of well-meaning people who don't realize that they don't have the foundation and the credentials and the knowledge
Mm-hmm.
to be spreading information across social media.
Mm-hmm.
And that we all want to help people, and
Right.
if they truly want to help people and not sell something, if they truly want to help people, then I really encourage them to go to school and get the credentials that
Mm-hmm.
they need in order to have the license to share information like that.
Right. Do you feel that there are other occupations out there who people just so blindly trust others without the credentials and the appropriate education as in the nutrition space?
Oh, sure. There certainly are. I mean, I think the most common one are like, not physical therapists, certified personal trainers, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe they're not certified. And, again, I think somebody could be a personal trainer with some basic, sensible advice, but there
Mm-hmm.
is a line that they shouldn't cross.
Mm-hmm.
And, interestingly, in the field of diabetes, there's dietitians, there's nurses, there's pharmacists, there's physical therapists,
Mm-hmm.
there's obviously endocrinologists. Well, we all wear a variety of hats, and we complement and overlap with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not that we're being territorial. There needs to be a little bit of crossover, but there is a scope of practice that dietitians have and that other professionals have that we
Mm-hmm.
do need to, as I like to say, swim in our own lanes.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, if we're not really up to speed on the research and the recommendations,
Mm-hmm.
we're not helping that person.
Right.
Just like any diet that somebody tries and then they fail, or some recommendation that they follow that doesn't work, or worse yet, it could be harmful to
Mm-hmm.
them, that puts that person so far back behind the eight ball in order to trust themselves
Mm-hmm.
and to be empowered to have healthy habits. There's so much damage done there.
Mm-hmm.
So coming back from that is really difficult.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a big fan of working as a multidisciplinary team. We all have to work together. It's impossible for us to be an expert in all areas. I see this huge movement now of so many people becoming professional psychologists without the credentialing, and it's like, oh,
Mhm.
there are certain things that, we just can't go there. And so I'm
Yeah.
a big promoter of supporting and working together as a team so that we can set people up for success.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember early in my career, I worked a lot with eating disorders,
Mm-hmm.
and I reached a point where I thought, yes, I'm trying to work with this person's counselor, psychologist, psychiatrist, but there wasn't as much communication as I would have
Mm-hmm.
liked. And I felt like I can't do any more as a dietitian to help this person unless I get a degree
Uh-huh.
in psychology. And I didn't want to go down that road. I wanted to go down a different road. But yeah, I think it's really important that each of us, find that line where, okay, this person needs, like you said, an interdisciplinary team,
Yeah.
and that we need to respect that. And, obviously, everybody eats, so everybody thinks they're an expert in food.
Right.
I always say, like, well, you can do your own taxes, but maybe they'd be done better if you hired somebody, and it could just be like one of those, simple, it doesn't have to be some fancy CPA or whatever, but it could be
Right.
some simple program that you go to. But I could cut my own hair, but it wouldn't look as great as it does
Right.
now. Trust me. So there's just like, I think we need a little respect,
Yeah,
and
I
we don't
agree.
always get it.
I agree. I love being a dietitian. I get a lot of slack from people. They're like, "Oh my God, why did you waste all that money and go that route?" And I'm like, I am so grateful that I went this route, that I invested in myself. It was literally the best thing that I could have ever done for myself. And I get so much fulfillment and so much enjoyment out of having my credentials. A lot of opportunities that I've had would not have been offered to me had I not had the appropriate credentials. And so, in that social media space, there's just so much going on there. And I literally have to be very cautious about the time, energy, and effort going on there, because I get really frustrated when I see a lot of the bashing and things, and even bashing doctors. It's like, oh my gosh, we have to stop this, people. It's
Yeah.
we just we're all here for the same purpose, and we have to support one another and work together so that we can actually achieve the goal, which is helping everybody achieve a greater quality of life. I know that's what I'm in this for.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah. So what fun things do you have coming up this year? I know you're always doing exciting stuff.
Oh, yeah. So, well, besides the podcast turning 5 in April, and hitting some kind of milestone downloads, which is kind of exciting, and numbers don't really matter, but it does show that it's not just flying off of people's radar. Like it's still relevant, and I
Mhm.
love the guests that I get on my show, and expertise. It's so much fun to learn and to help them spread the word. But probably the most exciting thing on my calendar for 2020 is that I'm going to be speaking on podcasting at the International Congress of Dietitians in South Africa, Cape
Oh,
Town, South Africa. Yeah,
holy cow, that's
I'm so
amazing.
exciting. I mean, I'm
That
so
is
excited.
that is amazing.
I know.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So for someone like me who is just getting started in the podcast industry, what best advice do you have for me?
Oh my gosh. Well, someone like you already got it. Like you listened to yourself and you followed your passion and you learned to get out of your own head.
Mm-hmm.
And I still work on that. We have to get out of our own head. We're our biggest self critic.
Yes.
And we need more self-care, more self-love,
Yes.
and to connect with people like, I love connecting with people like you and just, giving cheers and support and guidance and just a sounding board. I think that if we just follow our passions and trust ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
I think it comes back to that trust
Yeah.
and being present and just enjoying this journey. We're in a great field. You're right. You can do anything that you want as a
Yeah.
dietitian
Yeah.
and just create your own path and blaze your own trail and enjoy it.
I love that. So I've got a selfish question to ask you about podcasting. So being that I'm new to this whole thing, and there's like a lot of people that I want to interview, a lot of experts out there, how do you get their attention for them to come on your show? What is a piece of advice you
Mhm.
can give me that I can use to get the juicy person that I want to have?
Well, two things. One is if you're genuinely interested in them and what they're doing, they would value the opportunity to talk with you and to get their voice out on your platform. The real key is to really listen and pay attention to what they do,
Mm-hmm.
and really know it.
Mm-hmm.
So like I get pitches all the time for people to come on my show and I can tell that they've never listened to my show by what they're pitching me. I'm like,
Yeah.
I try to be pretty open,
Uh-huh.
but there are things where I'm like, I would never talk about that on my show. So
Yeah.
why are you like, I just don't even.
So, with that being said, how do you handle that when that person does pitch that to you and you know that it's not in alignment with you, your philosophies, your
Yeah.
practices whatsoever? How do you kindly tell them no?
So what I say is thank you very much, but that's not a topic that, I anticipate having on my show.
Mm-hmm.
But wink, wink, nudge, nudge. If you listen to the show and you have other people, or, maybe it's a PR firm,
Mm-hmm.
that they have other people that might be a good fit, I'm all ears. But really it's PR 101. Like
Yeah.
these people, like if they're not going to take the time,
Yeah.
I mean, this is PR 101. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not going to take the time to know the outlet, I mean, I pitched TV in Chicago.
Uh-huh.
You better bet your sweet patootie that, is that a word I can say?
Yes, that's 100%.
That if I reach out to the show and I haven't watched it, that producer is going to be like, why would I ever even give you the time of day?
Right.
So, I kindly basically, like I said, just say, thanks, but no thanks. Like
Right.
you
I
got to know
always,
the outlet.
yeah, there's, I've had people send some videos in, and I've had people write really nice things, but then I'm reading it and I'm like, this has nothing to do with my philosophies, practices. This is not in alignment with who I am and the audience that I serve. And so there's that initial like, oh, but then I have to ask myself, like, Heather, come on. Are you serving? You can't serve everyone, and you can't
No,
please everyone. And
no.
so anyway, I've had to send out those kind disregards of, I appreciate the interest. However, this doesn't feel in alignment with, what I'm
Exactly.
doing, and good luck.
Exactly. And nice of you to take the time to let them know, because clearly they're just throwing spaghetti on a wall. They haven't
Yeah.
taken the time to really
Yeah.
know your show. And
Yeah.
and if your show is new, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they're not sure what direction you're going to go or how it's going to evolve, but still.
Yeah. No, I agree. Well, Melissa, it is such a pleasure to have you on. I so appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. You're so awesome. You're just a pioneer who has been just, inspiring dietitians like myself. I get really excited watching your work and seeing you evolve into new things and create new opportunities for yourself as an entrepreneur in the nutrition space.
Well, thank
You're
you.
amazing.
Right back at you. It's been
Oh,
inspiring watching you. And I think, we can all learn from each other. And like I said, support each other. And I'm so thrilled that you have a podcast. I
thank you.
love that more dietitians are getting their voices in this space. We need our voices everywhere. So
Yeah.
congratulations, and
Well, thank you.
keep at it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, and thank you again for all of your guidance and your expertise as a coach for me personally, who gave me the confidence to know that if I wanted to do a podcast, I could do a podcast. So
Absolutely.
I pondered that for a really long time. And then, finally I had to say, what is stopping me? You are stopping you.
Yes. Yeah.
Duh. So get out of
Yeah.
your own way.
And you're a great talker. You're a great talker, conversationalist, and you try it. If you like it, keep doing it. If you don't, try the
Move
next
on.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I wish you the best of luck. Have so much fun in South Africa. I cannot wait to hear all about that. I'll keep following you, and hopefully I'll make it back to the Midwest someday, and you and I can actually meet in person and give a huge
Yeah.
hug and have lunch and do all those great things.
Absolutely. Or if I get to the West Coast.
Yes. Do you have any trips coming up out here?
No, unfortunately, I don't.
All right. All right. Well, if
But
you do, make sure you send me a message and let me know, because I would absolutely love to break bread with you.
yeah, love to give you a hug. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Mwah.
Thank you so much for spending this time with me on the Think Yourself Healthy podcast. I'm so grateful that you stopped by. If you could just take a minute to share this episode with someone you think who would love it, it would be amazing. Take a screenshot that you've listened to the episode and tag at Think Yourself Healthy and myself at Nutrition Vixen so that I can share it. Leave a review on iTunes to let us know how much you loved being here and what you want to hear next. Until next time, don't forget to think yourself healthy. Thanks again, guys. Bye.